Hello viewers, welcome to our second episode of the Black Consciousness Movement television. Your host, Nixon Nikadzino. And you remember we had our first episode whereby after you watching it, you were having a lot of questions. What is this animal? What is it all about? Is it a snake? Is it a political party? Is it a company? What exactly is it? And in order for us to unpack all those issues, we felt it very important for you, our audience and viewers, to get it from the horse's mouth. And our guest today is none other than Honorable Charles Muchineripi Mutama, a Black Consciousness advocate, an entrepreneur, an advocate and a Pan-Africanist, and also a person who has been advancing this movement ideology based on the Marcus Garvey and Garveyism ideology and other Africanists like the late Lumumba, the late Kenneth Kaunda, and so forth. So today, we want him to answer all your questions, to clear your mind, and ensure that as we move on as a movement, you'll be able to be clear about what this is all about. And Honorable Charles Muchineripi Mutama, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nixon Casino, and thank you, BCM, and of course our audience. Thank you very much for following this platform where we engage and discuss matters that are very important to the black race, to Africans all over the world, in the diaspora, on the continent.
Thank you. Tell me, what actually motivated you to be a driver of the Black Consciousness movement? You being a co-founder of this movement, and you being a person who has been in the trenches for a long, long time. What is the concept? What is the what are the objectives, so to say, and what is the vision of this Black Consciousness movement?
Oh, that's a very good question. I've encountered a number of questions from our viewers, from colleagues, people I've known on social media, on the phone, and they've been asking, so are you starting, is this a political party? Is this a movement we can join? And far from it, it's not a political party. Neither is it a movement where you can join and have membership. But what BCM is a shift, a mindset shift. It is a whole concept where we seek to attain unity amongst African people in the diaspora, on the continent, and to foster unity, collaboration and partnership in Zimbabwe in particular, where I am from, in matters to do with politics, economics, and social cohesion, in matters to do with recognizing our identity, our culture, fostering pride in who we are as black people first. Essentially, BCM seeks to promote that virtue of race first, which was propagated by the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey.
Why Marcus Garvey, Honorable Mutama?
Well, that's a very interesting question, considering the person that, or the luminary that you have referred there. Honorable Marcus Garvey, or the Right Honorable, is a great leader of based on what he achieved around 1914 to 1922 until he was incarcerated and deported from the United States, going to Jamaica, to the United Kingdom, and so on. This is a man who has been termed as the Black Moses for the black people, primarily because of his effort, primarily because of the work that he did towards the Back to Africa movement, towards the empowerment of black people, through the creation of black business-owned enterprises in the United States, through organizing black people up to 2 million strong membership, and also the formation of the Black Legion, the Black Cross, the Juvenile Division, the Negro World, the Black Star, which was a cruise ship which was meant to bring back Africans from the Caribbean, from the United States, back to Africa. So this is a great man who sought to restore the dignity of black people by encouraging them to realize that black people, amongst all other races, are not inferior. They are not subordinate, but rather they are equals among men. And if not excellent in terms of their achievements before slavery. And to talk about slavery, what he sought to do, as well as colonialism, was to remind black people that our life, or the story of black people, does not start when whites landed in Africa. The story of black people does not start when black people landed in the Caribbean and North America as slaves. But it started way back. We are aware of Mansa Musa. We are aware of the great Egyptian kingdom. We are aware of the Monumtapa kingdom. We are aware of Queen Zinga. So all these ancient empires existed before slavery and colonialism. And black people excelled in arithmetic, excelled in astronomy, which eventually was stolen to Europe from the Alexandria Library. So that's what Marcus Garvey stood for, to remind our people that we are a great people. We are not children of burden. Blackness is a badge of honor. That's what was packaged by the message of Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
Honorable Tama, you were speaking about Garveyism and the principles and values that he beheld, as a leader. Now, here in Africa, we also faced a lot of colonialism, whereby there was, differentiation of the black people by the colonizers. How do you link the two, Garveyism and colonialism, and post that you then talk about Pan-Africanism? How do you link the two?
Oh, that's a very good question, Nixon. I wanted to give a background to Garveyism, what inspired Marcus Garvey to found the Universal Negro Improvement Association, African Communities League. Why this favor for pride in blackness? Why this black consciousness around that time? And if you remember, around that time, I think it's always important as students of history to put everything into context and to understand what was driving nations at that time. That time when the UNI was founded was the time of the First World War. And if you remember, the causes of the First World War was nationalism, the arms race, the alliances, and then of course the assassination of the Archduke. But the concept of nationalism, the concept of identity, the concept of the arms race, the naval race in particular, and then of course the war was considered or dubbed the World War I, meaning Africa was involved, or Africans were involved. But were they? If you notice, Africans in North America, Africans in the Caribbean, Africans on the continent were involved as cannon fodder rather than as big men of big affairs. This was a war between Europeans, or a war amongst the so-called great nations who sought to stamp their superiority. They were pitted against each other. And they also remember it's the time of the Balkans, the Balkanization, right? Countries like Hungary, they were also seeking Balkanization. So there was this resurgence of nationalism. Now, let's go back to Marcus Garvey. What was he saying? Marcus Garvey was saying, where are the men of big affairs in Africa? Where is the black man in this matrix? So, he sought to ensure that Africans became a significant player in global affairs. That's why he sought economic power. If you look at how he structured the Universal Negro Improvement Association African Communities League, he sought economic empowerment. He sought political power, or what he termed empirism, an empire of the black race. He sought a cultural identity, right? Now, let's go to Africa now. We'll take Zimbabwe, for example. During this time, the then British South Africa Company was in charge of the territory that is modern-day Zimbabwe, through a charter that was signed around 1888. And of course, through a number of treaties that included the Right Concession, the Land Apportionment Act of 1930 was one of the issues that also look at the Right Concession, most importantly, the Moffat Treaty, the Land Husbandry Act, and then the past laws that were passed by the British South Africa Company. And then, of course, the othering of our traditional leadership and being stripped of the power and authority to distribute land. So land and our people became, I would say, alienated. The creation of urban areas, the creation of reserves. It was through the Land Apportionment Act, through the Right Concession, even the term itself, the Right Concession. When you hear the term concession, it means the territory that is now modern-day Zimbabwe became a mineral concession. to John Rawls. Now, where is the black man in this? The black man was going to be a source of labor. And the black man's movement was going to be controlled through a pass system. Men in villages were supposed to move around with what we call in our language, chituba, identity card. And you could be told where to move. You can move from the reserve to the urban area. The urban area was founded through the Urbanization Act, so that those areas that were apportioned to the white settlers, the producers, could remain the preserve of the white settlers. And black people remained in the overcrowded reserves that were unproductive. So, there you already see of black people in the Zimbabwean plateau. So now, then, out of that emerged our nationalism, emerged our leaders that we have referred to. You see the rise of trade unionism, which emerged out of the minds that arose from the concession approach, which was instituted by the British South Africa Company. And of course, the factories that were set up to process the agricultural produce that came out of the farming system or the agricultural system that was introduced through the Land Apportionment Act, the Land Husbandry Act. And Africans were supposed to be a source of labor. And what Marcus Garvey was saying was, time was up. Black people could not continue being drawers of water and hewers of wood. And no longer was Africa a dark continent. And no longer was Africa a source of labor for settlers. So there was a resonance in the message of Marcus Garvey and the message of our leaders who resisted. You remember, then there was the uprising, Chimurenga, the first Chimurenga, the second Chimurenga, and then of course the fast track land reform program in 2000, which has been denigrated by some, if not a lot, particularly in the West, but it was meant to redress the imbalances of the West, and it is part of this struggle that was started by Marcus Garvey, and of course promoted by people like Sankara, Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, and then of course the resistance of apartheid in South Africa, where we also saw almost 400 years of
so just to ask here from there, then do you think the dream of Marcus Garvey and the dream of our nationalists or Pan-Africanists has been realized?
Yes, because we have had what is called flag independence. Up to now, African countries are still struggling to extricate themselves from the colonial umbilical cord. I think you are aware of how the French influence West Africa. I think you are aware of the multinationals that operate most of our mining enterprises in Africa. So economically, we are still under the bond in terms of economic freedom. But in terms of political power, we have some semblance of political power. So there is a need as well of a mindset shift amongst black people Marcus Garvey termed as emancipating yourself from mental slavery, accepting the badge of burden, that black people are beasts of burden. They are the children of Sisyphus. But far from it, black people are great people. We have been given an image which has been peddled through media, so that there is this internalization of inferiority. So there is a need for emancipation in our mind from colonialism, from slavery, and then an appreciation and understanding of our greatness. That's a process which will take a long time, because if you have noticed, the way we treat each other, it's a continuation or a promotion of the divide and rule that was used by the British South Africa Company. That system of divide and rule persists even up to date. Look at how polarized we are in Zimbabwe, for example. Look at how toxic our policy is in Zimbabwe. Look at the intolerance. Look at the animosity that we exhibit in Zimbabwe, for example. But we are black people. We are great people. We have our kings who were termed chiefs by the British South Africa Company. Because if they were termed kings, that would be an affront to the Queen of England.
So
The British South Africa Company decided to term them chiefs, meaning they were smaller and subservient to the Queen of England. So let me go back to the issue of our heritage. What is our heritage? Our heritage is our kings being custodians of our culture, of our identity, and our land. But if you look at the Land Apportionment Act that I referred to, if we look at the right concession, it stripped them of that authority and power they once possessed as kings. And all of a sudden they became chiefs. And now look, fast forward to 2025. Who has the power and authority to distribute land in Zimbabwe currently? It is the government. The government which is modeled around the so-called Western democracy. Have we always had this so-called Western democracy in Africa? Not at all. In Africa and in Zimbabwe in particular, we are kingdoms. Earlier on I mentioned the Mulumtapa kingdom. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is we need to disrupt and we need to decolonize our systems, our governance system. We need to restore our traditional leadership system where it was before colonialism.
So that brings me to my next question. So how is the movement going to manage that, to deal with that nemesis? What is the movement's panacea to this main nemesis, considering that you are the leader, the co-founder, and so forth? And also talk about the black empowerment itself. What is it that you think the movement will be able to do in order to calm that problematic?
Okay, what the Black Consciousness movement seeks to do is to help our people appreciate that race comes first. Economic power is also important. Political power is also important. But there is unity power in numbers. Okay, Malcolm X said, we are not outnumbered, but we are out-organized. So what does it mean? As black people, we need to be organized, we need to be united. For instance, in Zimbabwe, I know this might sound controversial, but I remember, I think I was still in my early educational journey. But at the University of Zimbabwe, I remember there was a demonstration against the one-party state at the University of Zimbabwe by, I think, the then student leaders like Professor Atam who were against the one-party state. Interestingly, what has led to the division that we currently experience in Zimbabwe today and the animosity, the intolerance, is because of the numerous political parties that we have. What I can attribute to partisan and parochial pursuit of power and wealth by a number of people. Now, that is a clear lack of visionary leadership amongst our people. And I'm not blaming, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but what I'm saying is there is a need for national cohesion. I can give an example of the Chinese Communist Party of China, where you see it is a one-party state, but based on meritocracy. And there are no divisions. Of course, there are some accusations that are thrown around about the Chinese political system, but it bounds in progress that China has achieved in science, in their politics, in the industry, in their enterprise, and then of course in their global reach. I can attribute it to national cohesion, which we lack not just in Zimbabwe but on the African continent. Now look at the Sahel states, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, what they are trying to do, and look at the deafening silence of the so-called African Union. Can you rightly say Captain Ibrahim Traore is wrong in his approach? And of course, the AES or the coalition of the Sahel states, what it seeks to do. What happened? What happened to the bravado of the African Union, or let me say African states, or the Organization of African Unity, the OAU? What happened to the bravado of Julius Nyerere, the bravado of Robert Mugabe, the bravado of Nelson Mandela, the bravado of Steve Biko, the bravado of Patrice Lumumba? There is a deafening silence when these three states are working tirelessly to continue that journey that was started by our political leaders.
We are running out of time, but what I wanted to ask you before you can give your closing remarks is, where do we go from now? Where do we go? You have mentioned most of the the problems which are clear. You have mentioned what the movement is all about. So what is your vision as a leader of the Black Consciousness movement?
My answer to this is, where do we go from here? We are already here. This is the platform where we have started or continue with the journey of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Earlier on you asked me why Marcus Garvey, and I wanted to to mention that I have lived in the diaspora since 2004, particularly in the United States of America. And I have a lived experience in the United States. I've been exposed to the condition of the black man in the United States. And I am currently aware of the same concept that I alluded to of the beast of burden. The black man in the United States, in the Caribbean, on the continent, still has that mindset of the beast of burden. The 9 to 5, what you can call the 9 to 5 mindset, where you have to get a job or you have to be employed. So what we are seeking to do as BCM now is to help in that shift. Our movement, like I earlier on mentioned, is a shift that we seek to bring of encouraging our people to be united. That's number one. In our approach towards political economy or sovereignty as black people, in our economic sovereignty or economic power as black people, in our appreciation of our race, our culture, our norms, our music, our arts, recording that lived experience through our media, such as this, owning our own message, communicating who we are, what we seek to do, setting up enterprises. Therefore, BCM is an enterprise. It is not an organization which seeks to be an agitator, as our Right Honorable Marcus Garvey ended up being termed in the United States, that he was a Negro agitator. Far from it. We are agitating for national or African or Pan-African cohesion. We are moving practically towards economic empowerment, making sure that we are involved in the economic fabric of our nations, in Zimbabwe in particular and Africa in general. And of course, bringing together the diaspora. I have I'll just mention one particular policy that I have promoted as a person living in the diaspora. But of course, working towards returning to Africa, what African Americans have called the right of return, or the Back to Africa movement, is the diaspora bond. The diaspora bond, which I have promoted, is a financial tool that can be harnessed through the contributions or remittances of people in the diaspora to contribute towards the economic development of Africa, particularly in infrastructure, and held by a fiduciary organization. A diaspora bond can help Africa or Africans in the diaspora and on the continent towards economic independence. Financial independence through the use of a diaspora bond. For example, we have a big community of Nigerians, Ethiopians, Ghanaians, Zimbabweans, and then of course we have the Caribbeans, which is largely Africans who, ended up there because of slavery. And then we also have Haiti, which is the leader of the resistance of slavery in the black world. We can all come together, have this diaspora bond fund, which can be used for economic development in Africa. That's an example that I have promoted before in at a political party level. But what I believe now is, moving forward, we should set aside or reform our political system in Africa. We should review the what we call democracy. We should reconsider the traditional African governance system. We should also restore them at the apex of our governance system. I believe, and I'm persuaded to say that African traditional governance system should be supreme to the so-called Western democracy. At a political level, I believe that is the solution to the problem that we currently have. A reform of our political governance system at an individual level in each country on the continent, and at a continental level. Where our kings, where are they? The custodians of our land and our culture.
Okay.
That's my view.
So, Honorable Mtama, now that you have mentioned a lot of problems that we are faced, firstly as a continent and secondly as Zimbabwe, what are your parting words to the African continent and to Zimbabwe as a part and parcel of the nationalist movement?
Yes, thank you very much. I think it is very important to recognize the urgency of the situation. Honorable Marcus Garvey, the Right Honorable, asked the question, where are the men of big affairs? And I believe on the continent we have the men of big affairs in the form of the African Union. We have our political leaders in each country. And of course, I also am persuaded at the present moment we have the flag bearers in the form of Captain Ibrahim Traore and the other leaders in Niger and Mali, whom I believe should take cognizance of the geopolitics that we currently experiencing with the rise of China, the rise of India, and of course the power of the European Union, the United States. And of course there's a need for an understanding of where Africa stands. What is the role of the African continent? What is the role of Africans in the diaspora, Africans in the Caribbean? Where are we in the matrix of the economic, political equation in the world? And then, of course, recently we had discussions at the United Nations where President William Ruto was demanding a permanent seat in the Security Council for Africa. So those are the issues that need to be tackled presently at a continental level. And then, of course, the issue of a united Africa. Africa is well positioned to negotiate with China, the European Union, the United States, with India as a united front. So that's number one. Then in Zimbabwe, to young people, vana vemuzimbabwe vari kuona kuti varemerwa nenhamo, varemerwa nemamiriro akaita zvinhu Zimbabwe, zvingave nyaya yematongerwo enyika. Chandinoda kudzidzisa nekuti ndirangaridze vana vemuzimbabwe ndechekuti upenyu hwedu hwemuzimbabwe hauna kutanga nhasi, hwakatanga makare kare tichiri nemadzimambo ataiva nawo, masadunhu, vakauya vakatorerwa minda, vakatorerwa misha nevarungu through the British South Africa Company, through the Land Apportionment Act, the Right Concession, the Moffat Treaty. Tichizoona hondo yerusununguko chimurenga chekutanga nechechipiri. Tichizoona rusununguko 1980 kukundwa kwava Ian Smith nehurumende yavo. Tichizoona hurumende yeZANU-PF ichiuya. Tichizoona the opposition yakazouya, ingave Zoom, ingave MDC yavatsvangirai. Asi mukati mezvese izvozvo takaona bopoto, takaona kurwisana kuru pachedu. Zviri zvinhu zvisina kutanga tingangotaura rusununguko, zvinhu zvakatanga pakauya British South Africa Company, nokuti matongero avo iyo indirect rule yaikurudzira divide and rule, bopoto pakati pevana veZimbabwe, vamwe vachishanda neBritish South Africa Company, vamwe vachishanda vakamirira vana veZimbabwe kuti tiwane rusununguko. Zvinhu zvakaenderera mberi kunyange tasunungurwa. Zvinhu zviri kuenderera panguva inoyi kuti tive tisina kubatana. Saka ndinoona inini zvangu kuti chinhu chikuru sei kuti tibatane, titaure nhaurirwa nezvematongerwo enyika yedu, kuti vakomana izvi inonzi Western governance system, Westminster Foundation or democracy iri kushanda here muZimbabwe. Ko madzimambo edu takaisa kupi vaive ivo vanoona nezvepakweminda magariro edu. Pamutongo wedu watinawo, matongerwo enyika, madzimambo edu ari papi? Vari kuti chii pane bopoto ratinaro rekusawirirana sevana veZimbabwe? Isusu sevana veZimbabwe, izwi redu riri kunzwikwa here? Tikuuyawo here pakare? Zvanga zvakanaka pachinyakare kuti taikwanisa kuenda padare ramambo tokurukura zviri kunetsa muumambo hwedu. So that being said, I am saying there is a need for us to appreciate our history as Zimbabweans, our liberation struggle, before the liberation struggle, and of course our greatness which has persisted and endured, even though today we might feel burdened by the economy, by the politics, even though we might feel divided, we might have animosity, we might have anger. We need healing. We need to sit down and negotiate behind closed doors. Throwing brickbats and political posturing is not going to help us as Zimbabweans, and we must not play to the gallery to please outsiders. But when we meet and engage as Zimbabweans, we are doing it in dignity, respecting our leaders, those who fought against colonial rule, and then of course our generation, which emerged after independence, the leadership that is existing currently. How do we dialogue with our, let me call them our seniors? How do we dialogue with the war veterans? How do we dialogue with ZANU-PF, which has been in power since 1980? Is ZANU-PF an enemy? Is the Citizens Coalition for Change an enemy? Is the Patriotic Zimbabweans Party, by virtue of being an opposition political party, an enemy? No. These are ideas that it's a contestation of ideas. It's a contestation of groups with different political views. But at the end of the day, we are Zimbabweans. So, is the political party system working in Zimbabwe? We need to interrogate that. And then, of course, why have we relegated our traditional governance system in the political matrix? So let me hasten to say, one of the solutions that I proffer as a leader, as a Gavite, is we need to restore the traditional governance system to the apex of political power, and everything else should be subservient to the traditional governance system, to the custodians of our land and our culture. Then we will have direction, we will have unity, because we will have restored power to where it belongs. Thank you.
Once again, Honorable Mtama, tinoda kukutendai siyabonga kalebuka for being our guest in the episode of this very vibrant movement, the Black Consciousness movement. To you, our viewers, we want to thank you once again for having been with us. And for further information or viewership, please visit our social media handles. And we hope that we'll be able to see you next time based on the information that has been unpacked by the co-founder. Chinonaka chinozvinzura chega. For more information, please visit our social media platforms on our screen. And for those who are interested in our merchandise, also visit our social media handles on the screen. Please have a pleasant view, and bye-bye, chibabaichi.